Your Excellency, you are so well respected in the order and well loved, but many of us don't know a lot about you. We get questions about where's he from? Where did he grow up? Why did he become a priest? And how did he become a bishop? So if you would, share a little bit about where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So contrary to popular opinion, priests don't just pop out of the sky. I actually grew up in a family, my mom and dad and I grew up primarily in Huntington Beach in Orange County, California. I had always planned on just living in Huntington Beach, to be a banker, to get married, to have at least 4 kids. I'm an only child. Both my parents were only children. I wanted the family name to continue to exist. And so I grew up there, going to the beach, going to the pool pretty much every day of the summer, just enjoying the life of a beach kid in Huntington Beach.
And then when did you get the call, do you think, to be a priest? Was it one moment or was it sort of over time?
The call of the Lord came to me as my dad, who had converted to Catholicism when I was 10, he was a great man. He had a great sense of humor. We were joking all the time. He could be impatient and lose his temper for about 30 seconds, and then it was out of his system. And then when I was 13, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I remember him going to the hospital and coming back home, and he was in so much pain. He was always irritable. The joy was gone. And I had planned on being a banker, having a large family. I had my girlfriend at the time. But I saw whenever Father Tom came to the house and anointed him or even celebrated Mass or brought him communion, that for days my dad was different. He was like he used to be. Like the pain didn't exist. There was no suffering, it seemed. He was joyful. He was joking. And so when I'd pray, I'd hear the Lord say, if you really want to help people, become a priest. And I'm like, I want lots of money since my dad was a banker. I want a big family. I want a big house. I have my girlfriend. Not just 3 strikes, but 4 strikes, no. But especially after his death, it kept coming back to me. If you really want to help people, if you want to be fulfilled, become a priest. And so on my own, being a good introvert, I started to figure out, what does a priest do other than celebrate Mass on Sunday? So I was reading books about priests at the library. I started paying more attention to what the priests were doing. I broke up with my girlfriend. I quit going to the dances. And I found that every time I put a test to the Lord, as soon as I broke up with my girlfriend, we had a co-ed group in the parish that worked where we went camping and hiking 1 weekend a month. And I realized I didn't have to have a girlfriend to have friends that were girls. I started working at a fast food restaurant. The owners were super wealthy and they were miserable and fighting all the time. And I realized money didn't bring happiness. And God just took away my barriers. And so then I said, okay, Lord, I'm yours. And it was the best decision I've ever made, to be able to trust that God knew what was best for me more than what I would know of what was best for me.
Well, now you're the auxiliary bishop of Orange. And was that a surprise to you? Did that come? Was it something you were hoping would happen?
Many people ask, what classes did you take, or what did you do to build up your resume to become a bishop? Absolutely nothing. In fact, when I was first ordained, I didn't even want to be a pastor. I just loved celebrating the sacraments, preparing couples for marriage, visiting the school. I didn't want to deal with budgets and HR and administration. And yet when God called me to that position of a pastor, I was fulfilled more than I had ever imagined. And so when I was called to be a bishop, I was getting these phone calls from a number I didn't recognize, and they didn't leave a voicemail. So I never answered it, and I couldn't call back because I just had a random number. And Bishop Van, who is our bishop, is very friendly and chatty, and he'd call. And this one time he called and he was irritated. He said, somebody's been calling you and you're not calling back and you're not answering your phone. And so I'm going to text you a number and you call that and then call me. I thought I was in some big trouble. I'm trying to think, what did I do wrong? I don't remember doing anything that bad. So I dialed this number, and it was now Cardinal Pierre, the Apostolic Nuncio, the Pope's representative to the United States. Why am I talking to him right now? And so I apologized for not returning the calls, and then it dawned on me that it may be this. And I remembered, to distract him, I asked him about his visit to California. I have no idea what he said. I just was praying that the Holy Spirit would guide me and that the Blessed Virgin Mary would help me to have a heart like hers. And sure enough, he said, but I'm not here to talk to you about my trip to California. I'm here to say that Pope Francis is appointing you auxiliary bishop of the Diocese of Orange. Do you accept? And I remember saying to him that every assignment I've had as a priest was never one that I would have chosen for myself, and it was always better than what I would have chosen for myself. And so I believe that the Holy Spirit has guided every single assignment I've had, so I have to trust the Holy Spirit. And he said, that's beautiful, but I need to hear the word yes. So I said yes. And it was completely out of the blue. I hadn't done anything special. It was just the Holy Spirit guiding the church. And I never had wanted to be a bishop. And I can't remember a time that I've been happier. And to see how God is able to let me be his source of grace and mercy and compassion and hope and joy for so many people now, to visit all of our parishes, to be able to have a broader influence, to hopefully bring more and more souls to Christ has been the best thing that's ever happened to me.
So if there was one thing that really surprised you about being a bishop, what would you say?
It's a good question. I think how much people pay attention to what I say in a good way. That they as a priest, yes. I remember when I was first ordained, having people who are twice my age asking me for advice, and I think, who am I to give you advice? You're older, wiser, more virtuous. But even now, more so, that people really pay attention to what the bishops say, recognizing that we're successors to the apostles and that the Holy Spirit guiding us has something important to say to them. So it reminds me now when I speak, I need to be attentive to always speak those words that men need to hear, as St. Paul says, not necessarily just speak what I think people should be saying or doing.
It's beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about the Knights of Lazarus. So when did you first hear about the Knights of Lazarus, and what kind of made you interested in them?
So I applied to the seminary college in 1981 with two other men. We were there for the weekend. One of them was a priest for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. The other one passed away. And we're good friends. We go on vacation. We don't see each other much during the year. But he was invited to join by another priest. And so he started talking to me as he came back from his first GPC of the good works of the Knights, what makes us distinct, both being ecumenical and our focus on Hansen's disease or leprosy. And so I was interested. It took a couple of years before I was able to be brought into the order because unlike some orders, there's a limit as far as how many clergy can be in the order as compared to laity. So we don't want to be clergy heavy because obviously our primary work is out in the world and we need the laity to be able to do that. So he would just keep telling me about these great experiences and all the good that was happening. And so when I was asked to join, it was a great honor and privilege to be a member of the order.
What's one of your favorite things about being in the order now that you've been in the order for a little while?
I've been in the order, I think 15, maybe more years. One is to see people from throughout the country who have a love of the Lord, who have a love of service, have a heart for the order, and in particular to get the reports of the good work that's happening. I think especially of the ways that we're helping the people with Hansen's disease in Mexico. I never knew before becoming a member of the order that leprosy was still pretty common in the world, sadly, and that it was so close to us. But to know that through our efforts, those clinics in Morelia and Michoacan are helping people with Hansen's disease to live great, normal lives. They wouldn't get those medicines. They wouldn't get that care if we weren't supporting them. And so that's the source of pride for me, I think, is how we're able to truly help people that in times past would have been isolated outside the walls, now have a good, normal, healthy life because of the work of the order.
For those that aren't familiar with it, can you explain a little bit about the origins of the Knights of St. Lazarus?
During the time of the Crusades, there were a number of different groups and men that went to make sure that the Holy Land stayed in Christian hands. And the Knights of St. Lazarus was unique because we're a hospitaller order. So as Crusaders went to the Holy Land, many of them ended up getting leprosy. So we were the ones then that started to create the hospitals, the care centers, to help those crusaders with leprosy to receive comfort, to be able to receive whatever level of care was available at the time. We also did help fight in the Crusades, but we're unique because we're both hospitaller and military. And from that time, we've continued that tradition of being able to care for those who are in need, caring for the Holy Land. We're under the spiritual patronage of the Melkite Patriarch, and we're blessed in that sense that he continues to be our spiritual protector, and we have great relationships with him, and we're blessed in that unique way of being hospitaller and being military.
So you mentioned the term ecumenical. Some folks really don't understand what that quite means. Can you expand on that?
Sure. So to become a member of the order, you need to have Christian baptism. So you could be an Episcopalian, you could be a Lutheran, you could be a Methodist, you could be a Roman Catholic, but we recognize that there's more that unites us as people who have been saved by the blood of Christ on the cross and washed clean through the waters of baptism. So if a person was baptized Christian, they're able to join. And so one of our great works is trying to build up that union between the members of the church so that, God willing, one day we will all be fully united again in reception of the sacraments.
And this is very unique for an order to be ecumenical, isn't it?
Yes, I think we're probably the only real ecumenical order in the world. We have many orders that do good work. I'm a member of a couple of them that are solely for Roman Catholics. They do good work too. We do good work. But this is unique because of the willingness to bring in other Christians who are aligned with us in our mission.
So how would you describe the application of being a knight today in the world today, or a dame in the world today, to what it was like when it first began? Are there similarities? Are there important traits that we should continue?
One of the differences is that at the time of the Crusades, pretty much it was just, we were all Christians, all Catholics. It was later on that we had the Reformation. So one of the things that is different is that, yes, we have people of different communions, different faiths united with us, but we go back to our common baptism. What is similar is that we're always trying to look outside of ourselves. How do I become the presence of Christ for those who are suffering? How do I proclaim, not just by the good deeds, because we're not just an NGO. We do these things because Christ has called us to care for the sick. Christ has called us to be attentive to those who are suffering. And we do so based upon the faith, and we openly share our faith as we do these ministries. So our order does encourage us to speak of a faith, to proclaim Jesus Christ in this world. And although in the times of the Crusades, it wasn't secularism that they were fighting, but there was the presence to suppress the presence of Christ in the Christian Holy Land. So now there are many people that want to silence Christian voices, all the more in the public square, in our workplaces, in our homes, in our neighborhoods. As members of the Knights of St. Lazarus, we're called to always be proclaiming Jesus Christ, because without him, we're nothing.
Really, the values that you speak of is countercultural. We are taught to be me in this culture, to take care of I. But that's really not the values that the Knights exude.
Correct, yes. The society wants me, what's convenient for me, what's instantly rewarding for me. We talk about service, we talk about sacrifice, we talk about generosity, things that, as you said, are countercultural. But when you look at people who are enslaved in the mindset of the world, they're isolated, they're lonely, they're depressed, some are suicidal. When we gather at the different gatherings for the Knights of St. Lazarus, there are people who are giving and finding fulfillment in that. People who are self-sacrificing, finding joy in that. There is so much joy and laughter whenever it is that we gather. In fact, it's hard when it's time to get to a presentation to get the room to be quiet, because there is so much joy and laughter when we gather, because sacrifice leads to fulfillment, especially when we're doing it with Christ. And that brings us joy and unity as brothers and sisters in the order.
Your Excellency, that's so beautiful. How do we pass that on to the next generation? How do we share these values within our Knights of Lazarus community so that the next generation coming up shares those same values of service, of love, of sacrificial love?
I've been reading that this next generation who had been raised with all of these values of the world are finding themselves coming to the conclusion that this isn't making me happy. This is not fulfilling me. Young people have a hunger for the transcendent. Young people have a hunger for service. So I think we're uniquely positioned to be able to go out and just start talking to young adults, sharing with them what we do, why we do it. They'll be attracted because this is what they're longing for. You look at the number of young adults coming back to the faith, or many times coming to faith for the first time. How many young adults are receiving the sacrament of baptism at Easter is because they've realized the world's values aren't giving them life. And they've wanted to give their life to something better. They want the world to be a better place. They want to have a relationship with Christ. We, as a Christian order and an order of service, can easily fulfill that longing that they have in their heart that was put there by God, ignored for a while, but the Lord is always calling us back to relationship with Him. I think we just need to get our word out that what you're longing for, we have the way to get there.
Well, you'd be happy to know that just in a few short months, we've had an influx of inquiries, and many of them are from folks that are younger.
That's not a surprise, again, because when you could be part of something greater than yourself, when you're able to walk away from a project, from a meeting fulfilled that you've actually changed lives, when you're able to do so with the lens of faith that also reminds you that what you just did was for Christ present, and that at the last judgment, He's going to say, I was hungry and you fed me, I was sick and you visited me. Welcome into the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Young people want that. And so it's not a surprise that more and more people, as they start to hear about our good order, will continue to want to be part of it.
As we conclude, is there a message of hope or courage that you want to end with that you really feel that the order has helped bring out?
When I look at all that the order is doing, I'm always filled with hope. When we hear the stories at our meetings of not just projects, but the individuals whose lives have been changed and wouldn't have been changed had we not been there, there's great hope. Lives are being changed. People are coming to the faith. People are falling more deeply in love with the Lord. When I see, even among the members of the order, a greater spiritual depth, a greater love of the Lord. I was talking at our last gathering with somebody who has started now going to adoration every day, and in part because of the seeds that were sown through our order. So good things are happening, and I think that this is just the beginning of a miracle of grace that's going to be coming upon our order.